Good afternoon. I'm going to switch gears for a moment, talk about what works in retirement plan design, maybe what doesn't work. Any discussion of retirement plan design ought to begin with an assessment and evaluation of policy objectives, stakeholder objectives. And with respect to retirement plans, there are three primary stakeholders. You have taxpayers, public employers like state agencies, school districts, police departments, and public employees themselves, of course. For public employers, what are they seeking? Often overlooked is the fact that the retirement plan is a workforce management tool, something to help retain qualified workers who are needed to perform essential public services, something that helps limit turnover and training costs for employers, and that's needed to promote an orderly turnover of workers, especially at an age that is appropriate for that worker's position. Taxpayers benefit when the retirement plan promotes delivery of public services at a cost that's reasonable, stable, and predictable. Taxpayers also benefit when the retirement plan promotes independence by the employee in retirement so they don't end up on public assistance later on. The overarching issue facing retirement plan policymakers is how to design retirement policies to meet these disparate and sometimes competing objectives. Government cannot eliminate risks and costs. Government can only manage risks and costs. Challenge with regard to retirement planning is to minimize risks and costs while maximizing the achievement of policy and stakeholder objectives. As has been mentioned earlier, a lot of states have determined that closing a traditional pension plan would actually increase, not decrease, that state's costs. States have also found that switching over to a 401k or other type of defined contribution account alone does not meet various objectives, including saving money, but also denying a human resource management tool for public employers and imperiling retirement security for the nation's public workforce. A hybrid plan is not uniform in definition, and hybrid plan features vary widely around the country. In fact, you might be surprised to know that the federal government considers any defined benefit pension plan that includes employee contributions to be a hybrid plan, because nearly all retirement benefits for employees of state and local government require employee contributions. According to the federal definition, almost all state and local government retirement plans are actually hybrid plans in the eyes of the federal government. A hybrid plan is essentially any one that shares costs and risks between employees and employers. The trend among states in recent years has been to increase cost and risk sharing with employees, but that form can vary significantly. And within this variability, there are five features that have been retained in most plans that are known to promote retirement security and known to advance key stakeholder objectives. Think of these as elements of sound retirement policy. First feature of sound retirement policy is mandatory participation. 1/2 of the nation's private sector workforce does not participate in an employer-sponsored retirement benefit. Let me repeat that. 1/2 of the nation's private sector workforce does not participate in an employer-sponsored retirement plan. For obvious reasons, this has been identified as a key factor in the nation's overall retirement insecurity. Second feature of sound retirement policy is cost sharing between employees and employers. Most public employees are required to contribute to the cost of their benefit. Having employees contribute can help obviously reduce employer cost, also moderate variability in the cost of the plan. Third element of sound retirement policy is assets that are pooled and professionally invested. This arrangement offers multiple advantage over individual self-directed accounts. Pooled portfolios have a longer investment horizon, which allows them to take more investment risk over the long term and better sustain market volatility. Professional asset management costs less and returns more, overall reducing costs and increasing investment earnings. Fourth element, sound retirement plan design, is lifetime benefit, benefit that cannot be outlived. required annuitization. An overarching objective of a retirement policy ought to be to serve as old age income insurance so that someone cannot outlive their retirement assets. And the final feature of a sound retirement policy is benefit adequacy, including the provision of disability and death benefits, which are particularly important for first responders, firefighters, police officers, hazardous material workers, and so on. But also, 1/4 of the nation's public sector workforce does not participate in Social Security, and a retirement plan ought to recognize and account for the fact for those employees who do not participate. Generally speaking, those retirement benefits for those employees are higher to make up for the absence of Social Security. As was mentioned by some of the previous speakers, over the past decade, a growing number of states have established a retirement plan that features a traditional pension plan, but with a smaller benefit combined typically with participation in a defined contribution plan, such as a 401k. In DB/DC types, if I can call them that, if you will, the cost of the defined contribution is a vital consideration for policymakers. Expensive defined contribution plan investment options erode retirement savings. DB/DC hybrids ought to seek to minimize investment and administrative costs and maximize investment income. A study by the National Institute on Retirement Security found that a traditional pension benefit can deliver the same benefit as a self-directed account at nearly half the cost. And much of this efficiency is generated by the lower cost of pooled assets that are invested by professionals using a very long investment horizon. The Oregon PERS is a very helpful example in this regard. The Oregon Public Employee Retirement System pools all of its, they have a hybrid defined benefit plan. Traditional pension plan combined with mandatory participation in a defined contribution plan. But instead of directing the defined contribution assets into individual self-directed accounts, all of the defined contribution assets are pooled into a single fund that mimics the defined benefit fund. It's invested by the same people who are investing the defined benefit fund with a very long investment horizon, professional management, very low costs. Different type of hybrid that's in place in the United States right now is in Nebraska and Texas, known as a cash balance plan. They pool their assets, invest them in portfolios. They're managed by professionals like defined benefit plans. And they also provide a benefit that cannot be outlived. It's annuitized, also like defined benefit plans. But unlike traditional defined benefit plan, these cash balance plans in Nebraska and Texas also provide a benefit that's based on the value of the accumulated retirement assets and the employee's age at retirement, rather than basing it on salary and years of service. A cash balance plan like this melds traditional elements of defined benefit plans and defined contribution plans. But a cash balance plan can also fail to meet key stakeholder objectives. For example, if you want your police officers or school teachers to be able to retire at a particular age, a cash balance plan may not be able to achieve that objective. Cash balance plans that permit employees to cash out all of their assets as a lump sum are likely to see some undesirable outcomes, including retired employees with insufficient assets in retirement. Well-designed DB, DC, and cash balance plans offer opportunities to meet the needs of all stakeholder groups. But that is not to say that by definition a hybrid plan does a better job of achieving stakeholder objectives. Properly designing a retirement plan includes consideration and analysis of various risks and costs, and of how those risks and costs are assigned to employees, employers, and taxpayers. My organization recently published an issue brief on defined benefit, defined contribution, and cash balance plans. And that issue brief has been provided here. I think they were distributed on the tables. I would encourage you to take time to read that if you have an interest in retirement policy, to see what other states are doing with regard to hybrid plans around the country. There are a couple of other considerations that I want to mention, though, with regard to retirement design. The financial and actuarial condition of the pension plan is a major consideration whether and how a state can switch its plan design. Utah, for example, was able to make some of the changes it did at the cost that it did, in part because the Utah retirement system was in relatively good financial and actuarial condition. Generally speaking, the more underfunded a plan is, the more expensive it is to try to switch to a different retirement plan. Retirement security benefits everyone, and all of us are better off when others have retirement security. Our nation and our nation's workforce are both aging, and as policymakers and major employers, states are uniquely positioned to both model sound retirement policies and to promote retirement security for the more than 12% of the nation's workforce that is employed by state or local government. Thank you.